So we've been talking about matrices, and today we're going to learn how to multiply matrices. When we were adding matrices, they had to be the same dimensions or subtracting them. But when you're multiplying matrices, they do not have to necessarily be the same dimensions. What does have to happen is the number of columns in the first matrix has to be equal to the number of rows in the second matrix in order for you to be able to multiply them. So what I mean by that is if you look at matrix R, it's a 2 by 2. 2 rows, 2 columns. Okay, in the second matrix, matrix S, it is also a 2 by 2. It has 2 rows and 2 columns. Now, I know I can multiply these because these middle numbers are the same. They're both a 2 by 2. The number of columns in the first matrix is equal to the number of rows in the second matrix. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply them. When I multiply a matrix, I do the row by column. So for this first spot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2 and multiply it by the corresponding element, which is 3. Now I'm going to add that to -1 times 5. Okay, so I took this 2, multiplied it by the 3, and then I took the -1 and I multiplied it by the 5. And I added those two products together. For the next number, I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by the -9. That's from here, this 2 times this -9, and add that to -1 times the 7. Okay, so then in the next row, I'm going to do the 3 times the 3 plus 4 times the 5. Then I'm going to have 3 times the -9 plus 4 times the 7. I took the row and multiplied it by the columns, then the row by the second column, then the second row by the first column, then the second row by the second column. So now I can simplify this. If I were to add all this together, I'm going to have 1, -25, 29, and 1. Notice my ending result is a 2 by 2 matrices. That 2 comes from here and from here. The middle ones just kind of disappear. So it's a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, let's look at another one. If I have P equal to 8, -7, -2, 4, 0, 3, and Q is 9, -3, 2, 6, -1, -5. Let's see if I can multiply these first of all. We do the number of rows by the number of columns, so this is a 3 by 2. The number of rows, this one's a 2 by 3 columns. So look at the middle numbers. They are the same, so I can multiply these. And then I look at these numbers to see what my result should end up in. If I have a 3 by 2, and I multiply it by 2 by 3, my ending result will be a 3 by 3. Times the 9 plus the -7 times the 6. I did the row times the column. Now I'm still on this top row, but I now move to the middle column, and it's going to be in the first row, middle column, the answer. So I have 8 times -3 plus the -7 times -1. Now I'm still in the first row, so I still do the first row, but this time it's times the third column. So I have 8 times 2 plus -7 times -5. I don't know if I'll have enough room to write this. Yeah, there we go, barely. Okay, now I'm moving to the second row, so I'm going to move to this second row. Second row, first column, so I do the -2 times the 9 plus the 4 times the 6. Still second row, so -2, but now I'm in the middle column, so times the middle column plus the 4 times -1. 2 times, still middle row, third column, so -2 times 2 plus the 4 times -5. Okay, now I'm moving to third row. Third row, first column. So I'm going to do the third row times the first column. 0 times 9 plus 3 times 6. still third row, but now the middle column. So I have 0 times negative 3 plus 3 times negative 1. Third row, third column, 0 times 2 plus 3 times negative 5. Now, I can go ahead and simplify all this just by doing the math, doing the operations here. When I add all of that together, I end up with 30, negative 17, 51, 6, 2, negative 24, 18, negative 3, and negative 15. So the product of a 3 by 2 and a 2 by 3 ended up resulting in a 3 by 3. So let's look at P times, this was P times Q, so now let's look and see what happens if I do Q times P. This time I'm going to have a 2 by 3, and I'm going to multiply it by a 3 by 2. So the end result this time should be a 2 by 2. 9 times the 8 plus the negative 3 times negative 2 plus the 2 times the 0. So what I did here was I did the first row of Q times the first column of P. So now I've got to do the first row of Q times the second column of P. So I'm going to have 9 times negative 7 plus negative 3 times 4. I'm running out of room again, plus 2 times 3. Okay, next row. I'm going to have the second row times the first column, then this second row times this third column, or second column, I'm sorry. Second row, second column. So I have 6 times 8 plus negative 1 times negative 2 plus negative 5 times 0. And moving on, second row still times the second column now. So I have 6 times negative 7 plus negative 1 times 4 plus negative 5 times 3. So when I simplify all of this, I end up with 78, negative 69, 50, and negative 61. So commutative property of multiplication doesn't hold true for matrix multiplication, and this is shown in this example. P times Q gave me a 3 by 3 matrices, or matrix, whereas Q times P gave me a 2 by 2 matrix.